With time Ethan's health recovered very slowly. But his soul remained the same as before. Broken. The doctors monitored him closely, adjusting medications, checking blood pressure, running weekly tests to stabilize the internal damage caused by years of silent suffering. Alan stayed through all of it, hovering like a shadow that couldn't leave even if it tried. His alpha presence restrained but constant. He silently held blankets when nurses adjusted Ethan's position, silently placed water on the table, watched for the faintest twitch of discomfort on Ethan's blank face. Ethan's pheromones were faint now, thin, fragile, nothing like the soft warmth they once carried. Every small improvement in his pulse, every time he swallowed water without help, every time his fingers twitched in sleep, Alan watched it like a man starved of hope. But while Ethan's body bring itself back together, his emotions remained sealed somewhere deep and unreachable. And that terrified Alan more than any medical complication ever could. He noticed things he had never cared to see before. How delicate Ethan's wrists looked without their former strength, how quickly he get tired after walking from the bed to the window, how he flinched at sudden sounds, how his instincts curled inward whenever Alan entered the room. Ethan was used to move quietly, cautiously, but now he moved like someone who had nothing left to protect. His silence wasn't peace. It was resignation. And Alan knew, he caused every bit of it. Regret settled heavier each day, like a stone on his chest. Some nights he sat beside Ethan's bed long after he fell asleep, staring at the thin wrist resting on the pillow, wondering how it had endured him, his dominance, his cruelty, his indifference. Memories returned with brutal clarity. The first time, when anger overrode reason. Ethan pinned to the bed. His trembling voice. His desperate pleading. The way his omega scent spiked in fear when Alan refused to stop. His hand pressing into Ethan's abdomen. The sharp gasp. The trembling. The sudden pallor. Alan had been blind with rage. When the bleeding began, he hadn't understood, hadn't cared. Treat him, he had said coldly. Like dismissing an inconvenience. Now the memory replayed endlessly, each detail sharper, more unforgivable. Sometimes the weight forced him into the chair beside the bed, head buried in his hands, breath shaking. One night, he broke. Ethan. I killed our first child with my own hands, his voice tore apart as the words escaped. I don't know how I became the person I hated most. I know regret can't change anything. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't even deserve to moor on them. I'm not asking you to forgive me, I don't deserve that. But I just want to shamelessly beg for a chance. Please give me a chance, please let me make it up to you. Ethan didn't react. He lay there, eyes half open, staring past him. Alan reached out with trembling fingers, barely brushing the back of Ethan's hand. Please, say something. Anything. Scream at me, hate me, but don't stay quiet like this, Ethan. Silence. Only the hum of machines and the faint, hollow scent of an omega who no longer responds. Alan made a broken sound, pressing Ethan's limp hand against his cheek, slapping himself with it. Hit me. Please, slap me, hurt me, I deserve it. I deserve all of it. Ethan's fingers lay motionless against his face. Alan's tears spilled freely. I killed all 4 of them, didn't I? He whispered, a trembling smile splitting into something wounded. For children, because they had a father like me, because I was worse than the man I hated. His voice shattered. I became him. I became the man I swore I'd never be. He pressed Ethan's hand to his forehead, shaking. Ethan, please come back, even if it's to punish me. Even if it's to curse me for the rest of my life. I'll accept anything. Just don't disappear like this, don't be gone please. Ethan blinked slowly. Nothing reached him. Later, when he finally spoke, his voice carried no inflection, no pain or warmth. It doesn't matter. The tone was calm, gentle, polite. The voice one used with strangers. Alan froze. Ethan, what doesn't matter? Ethan turned toward the window, expression distant. Anything you're sad about. Anything you're sorry for. It doesn't matter. Alan's throat tightened. Don't say that. Don't. Please, please Ethan. If it didn't matter, I wouldn't be dying every second. A soft smile touched Ethan's lips. Though it wasn't real. It carried no warmth, no hope, but just emptiness. It already happened, he whispered. There's no point being sad. Alan shook his head, gripping the blanket like a drowning man. There is. There is every point. I destroyed you. I destroyed our children, Ethan interrupted gently. You should focus on your work. Alan's breath hitched. Ethan. I don't care about work. I care about you. He gave another calm smile. You don't need to stay here all the time. It won't change anything. Whether they're gone, or whether I can't carry a child anymore. It doesn't change anything. I'm fine. Fine. Alan echoed bitterly. You're not fine. You're not even trying to live. You're just breathing. Ethan tilted his head slightly. Isn't that enough? Alan covered his face, choking back sobs. No. It's not. Not when you're like this. Not when I did this to you. Ethan reached for the glass of water beside the bed, movements slow, mechanical. I don't hate you, he said quietly. Those words should have relieved Alan. But they didn't. Because there was no emotion behind them. No Omega instinct, no warmth, no resentment. Just void. Do you feel anything, Ethan? Anything at all? Alan whispered. Ethan met his gaze. It doesn't matter, he said. And in that moment, Alan understood something cruel. He could survive Ethan's anger, his hatred, his rejection. But this terrifying indifference. This polite emptiness, this absence of feeling. He could not endure it. He wanted to turn Ethan into a doll. And now Ethan truly became one. A beautiful and obedient toy. He became emotionless and untouchable in the worst way. The tragedy was simple. Ethan had become exactly what Alan once wanted. But now Alan wanted the previous one back. The next 2 years of Alan's life did not pass like time usually does. They dragged into endless days where each hour felt like punishment handed down by the universe itself. Every morning he woke to the sight of the Omega he had once broken. He is not the fierce, spirited Ethan anymore who once laughed, cried, shouted, dreamed. But a quiet, pale, silent version of him. The doctors had warned him that emotional trauma sometimes did not leave scars on the skin, but dug its claws so deep inside a person that they became unfamiliar even to themselves. He didn't understand that at first. He thought physical healing would bring emotional healing. That giving Ethan comfort would bring back his feelings. He thought being gentle would erase the cruelty he had shown him. But he was drastically wrong. Ethan's body healed with long months of medication, injections, and constant monitoring. His Omega physiology, once destabilized by trauma, required constant hormone regulation and pheromone suppressants to prevent dangerous fluctuations. The bruising along his abdomen healed with time, though the faint traces of old wounds still remained. But his spirit, that never returned. Where once he reacted to the world. Flinching at harsh tones, brightening with hope, trembling when Alan's dominant pheromones flooded the air. Now he simply existed with a serene, numb calmness that chilled Alan to the bone. An Omega's pheromones should shift with emotion, fear, comfort, affection, but Ethan's remained muted and flat, as if his very instincts had shut down. He did everything Alan asked, spoke when spoken to, followed routines and treatments without complaint. He smiled often, not from happiness, but because Alan hoped him to smile. He didn't resist, didn't demand or didn't argue. It's like he lost all his feelings. And that terrified Alan more than any scream, any fight, any tears ever could. At first he tried to break through Ethan's silence with words. Then apologies. Then raw desperation. But nothing worked. He would sit beside the bed for hours, hands trembling as he held Ethan's fingertips, his dominant sense suppressed so it wouldn't overwhelm him. His voice cracking under the weight of everything he wished he could undo. Ethan, Alan whisper. Forehead pressed against Ethan's knees, his breath shaking with each word. I'm begging you, please talk to me. Please yell at me, cry, curse me, just don't look at me like I'm a stranger to you. Sometimes his begging would crumble entirely and he'd fall onto his knees, gripping the edge of the bed like a drowning man holding onto a lifeboat. "Please," he'd choke. "Don't smile at me like this. I can't take it. I don't deserve your calmness. I deserve your hate. Just say something. Anything." But Ethan would turn his gaze toward him with that gentle, hollow softness. A softness that felt like death, and whisper in the quietest voice. "I am all right, don't worry." Those words destroyed him each time. He once even pulled Ethan's small hand toward his face, holding his wrist as if he were made of glass, and slapped himself with Ethan's palm, tears falling uncontrollably. "Hit me," he begged through sobs. "Punish me, hurt me, do anything, don't forgive me by pretending none of it mattered." But Ethan simply withdrew his hand with no emotion at all, as though the world around him had no weight anymore. "Why should I be angry?" he murmured. Tone painfully calm, "There is nothing left to be angry about. Everything happened. Everything ended. It doesn't matter anymore." The numbness in his voice haunted Alan. He couldn't escape it, argue against it or heal it. And slowly, he realized he was living beside an Omega whose soul he had crushed with his own hands. Despite everything, he didn't stop trying. He refused to give up, because giving up meant accepting that the Omega he loved was gone forever. So he took Ethan on vacations. Or at least, that's what he told him and the world. But the truth was far less pretty. Every trip had one real purpose: doctors. They went Paris but not for romance, it was a desperate visit to Europe's best Omega reproductive specialists. Switzerland wasn't for sceneries, it as a frantic search for trauma therapists familiar with suppressed Omega instincts. Singapore was a consultation with surgeons who specialized in reconstructive gestational damage. Seoul was a meeting with a globally renowned fertility team focused on high-risk Omega pregnancies. Everywhere they went, Alan carried Ethan's medical reports in his hands. Reports describing damage to the Omega reproductive system, internal tearing, hormonal collapse, trauma-induced suppression. He memorized the percentages, possibilities, complications, impossibilities, everything. The doctors, no matter what language they spoke, told him the same thing. There is no possibility, no hope for restoration. The reproductive system is permanently damaged. Pregnancy would be life-threatening. Each time, a part of him died again. Once, after leaving a specialist in Seoul, Alan sat alone in the hospital hallway, head lowered, elbows on his knees, hands shaking violently. His pheromones spiraled with guilt, bitter and suffocating. "I killed my own children. I killed every chance he had," he whispered. "I'm the one who ruined his happiness. His future, his instincts." But Ethan stood beside him, motionless, his scent muted and distant. "Alan, don't be like this," he said softly. "It doesn't matter if I can't have a child. It never bothered me." That terrified Alan more than the doctor's verdict. He didn't blame fate. He blamed himself. That blame became devotion. The alpha who once mocked belief, now knelt in temples, suppressing his dominant sense so it wouldn't disturb sacred spaces. In Kyoto, he bowed until his forehead touched stone, whispering Ethan's name like prayer. In India, he sat before a monk, shoulders slumped like a condemned man. "Bless him, not me," Alan whispered. "I don't deserve it. Just, give him back his life." He donated millions quietly, to Omega shelters, reproductive research, trauma centers, always under one name: Ethan Foundation. He wanted blessings to reach him from every corner of the world. But nothing really changed. At home, Alan became the alpha Ethan should have had. He woke before dawn to brew calming tea formulated for Omega hormone balance. He cooked meals tailored to recovery diets. He folded Ethan's clothes, monitored scent levels, ensured pheromone suppressants were properly dosed. He followed him not from dominance, but fear. Fear Ethan would collapse, that his system would destabilize. Fear he would disappear entirely. The alpha who once forced proximity now hesitated to touch him. His hand hovered near Ethan's cheek, trembling, waiting for permission. With Ethan's consent they got married, a grand ceremony was held. It was like a fairy tale alpha-omega bond. Cameras flashed, society envied them. But no one knew Ethan smiled only because he was asked to. At night, Alan lay awake listening to Ethan breathe. Sometimes guilt crushed him until he curled toward Ethan, whispering into the sheets. "I ruined you. I ruined everything. I became the monster I swore I'd never be." He pressed his forehead gently to Ethan's abdomen, the place that once carried life, tears soaking the fabric. "I killed them, all of them. For innocent lives, because of my anger." Ethan remained still. Sleeping. Or maybe pretending. Alan no longer knew. 2 years later, the world saw a perfect alpha-omega couple. Alan saw the truth. Ethan had not healed. He had adapted to emptiness. He didn't complain. Didn't argue or hope. "Alan," Ethan would say calmly, "please do your work. I don't need so much attention." Attention. The word stabbed. He spoke like an Omega who no longer believed he deserved care. Who accepted a future stripped of instinct and hope. Who survived without expectation. And Alan realized something far worse than losing love. He had lost Ethan's soul. It hadn't died overnight. It died little by little, through pain, loss, trauma, broken bonds. Now Ethan moved through the world like a quiet ghost. An Omega who had learned to exist without feeling. An Omega Alan could no longer reach. An Omega shaped by his cruelty. Some regrets come too late, some sins cannot be undone, some wounds never heal. Alan Kingston understood. He could give Ethan the world. But he could never really return what he had taken. 3 years of rejections had drained every last drop of hope out of Alan Kingston, but he still kept going, dragging his guilt and desperation across continents. Every hospital corridor looked the same to him now. White walls that echoed with his silent prayers, sterile lights that felt too bright for the kind of darkness he was fighting inside. Every expert in every country had given him the same answer in different accents, different tones, different formats of sympathy. Impossible. They weren't just talking about injury anymore, they were talking about a damaged Omega system, a wound that should never carry life again, instincts that had been pushed past their limits. Eventually the words stopped hurting, not because he accepted them, but because he had long passed the threshold where pain could still shock him. He was running on regret alone. So when the miracle finally happened, it didn't arrive with fireworks or divine light. It came quietly. Hidden, unnoticed, growing inside Ethan's fragile womb while he moved through days like a silent ghost. Alan had missed every sign, though he thought of himself as observant to the point of obsession. Ethan ate quietly, slept quietly, walked quietly. His scent remained muted, suppressed and flat like it had been since the trauma. His body never complained. He never reacted, never frowned, never winced. So how could Alan have known? He found out only because he took Ethan again on another vacation, another trip that wasn't a vacation at all, but a desperate pilgrimage to yet another specialist. He carried Ethan's files himself, thumb grazing over old reports like someone rereading a death sentence. After running the first scan, when the doctor stepped out and looked at him with an expression that's neither pity nor neutrality, Alan felt something shift in the air. "Mr. Kingston, your Omega is pregnant," said the doctor. Approximately for 8 weeks. For a moment, the world fell silent. Alan stared blankly, unable to breathe, unable to blink. His lips parted but no sound came out, like speech itself had abandoned him. Ethan's lashes fluttered, his fingers trembling as he clasped them together. His eyes widened, he is not crying, not smiling or gasping, just blinking again and again, as if his mind was struggling to understand the meaning of the words. He whispered, barely audible. "What?" His voice shook for the first time in years. That tiny tremble broke Alan. By the time they stepped out of the consultation room, Alan collapsed to his knees right in the middle of the hallway. He grabbed Ethan's waist, burying his face against the small swell of his abdomen. His shoulders shaking uncontrollably. His alpha pheromone spiked with disbelief and raw relief before he forced them down, terrified of overwhelming Ethan. Nurses and patients stared, but he didn't care. How could he care? He was laughing and sobbing at the same time, clutching Ethan as if he were the last precious thing in the world. "Ethan. My God. Ethan, we have a baby, we actually." He pressed trembling kisses to Ethan's abdomen over and over, tears falling freely down his face. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you, but thank you so much. Ethan stood there stiffly, his fingers hovering uncertainly over Alan's hair before dropping back to his side. He looked overwhelmed. Not joyful, not horrified, just lost. His scent flickered faintly for the first time in years, a fragile ripple of Omega instinct reacting to the word baby. His eyes glistened but no tears fell. He swallowed hard, staring down at Alan with a strange mix of disbelief and fear, his voice stuck somewhere deep in his chest. The following weeks were something out of a dream, for Alan. For Ethan, they were confusing. The pregnancy was unbelievably smooth. There's no nausea, no dizziness, no morning sickness. As if the little life inside him understood exactly how fragile its Omega parent was, and chose to grow quietly, carefully, without disturbing him. Alan couldn't count the number of times he murmured against Ethan's belly. You're such a good child, so obedient, so gentle with Mama. Thank you. The word slipped out naturally. He spoke to the baby every night, voice filled with awe, his alpha scent warm and protective but carefully controlled. The more Ethan felt nothing physically, the more Alan compensated, narrating every change, every heartbeat, every hope. But Ethan remained mostly the same. Silent, calm, detached. Except. He started touching his stomach absent-mindedly. His fingers would hover there sometimes when he thought Alan wasn't looking. He would press lightly, as if checking if the child was truly real, if his damaged body was really doing the impossible. Once, Alan walked into their room late at night, only to see Ethan sitting at the edge of the bed, one hand cupped gently around his small bump, his eyes softer than he had seen in years. Almost curious. Almost alive. His scent shifted faintly, warm and uncertain, a quiet Omega instinct stirring. Ethan didn't notice him standing at the door, didn't see Alan's eyes fill with tears as he stepped closer. He didn't speak. Didn't disturb him. He simply kneeled beside Ethan, placing his cheek against his lap, arms around his legs. Alan became a different kind of alpha entirely. If protectiveness had a form, he was its definition. He wouldn't let Ethan lift anything heavier than a spoon. He held his elbow while he walked, even indoors. He carried him down the stairs, he fed him with his own hands when Ethan seemed too distant to eat. He warmed his cold feet between his palms, massaging them slowly until Ethan relaxed. He spent long minutes smoothing warm oil over Ethan's baby bump, fingertips tracing gentle circles as he whispered stories to the tiny life inside. Sometimes he pressed his forehead lightly near Ethan's scent gland, not marking, never claiming, just resting there in quiet reverence, reminding himself to be gentle. And every night, once Ethan fell asleep, Alan read parenting books, trying to learn everything he could so he wouldn't fail again. After that, he opened children's storybooks and read them softly to Ethan's belly until he drifted deeper into sleep. He never brought up the past. Not even once. He was terrified a single memory might shatter whatever fragile calm Ethan had found. But he carried the regret like a stone tied to his heart. Sometimes he sat alone on the balcony at 3 a.m., head buried in his hands as he whispered to the night. I don't deserve this child, or him. I killed their siblings, how am I supposed to look into their eyes one day and explain? He wiped his tears quickly before going back inside. Ethan never saw, or maybe he saw and pretended not to. Alan donated more to charity, Omega shelters, reproductive hospitals, fertility research, always under Ethan's name. The Hope Fund spread quietly across countries. The alpha he once was would have mocked this version of himself. Now he barely recognized that cruel, careless man. Months passed. Ethan's baby bump grew beautifully. His scent changed, just a little. Softer, warmer, alive in a way Alan hadn't felt in years. His voice remained soft. His movements remained gentle. But sometimes Alan caught him watching the crib. Ethan paused longer while looking at tiny clothes. Sometimes his palm lingered over his stomach. His lips trembled when the baby kicked faintly. He was changing slowly. Alan cherished every second. Then one quiet evening, only weeks before the due date, something changed. They were sitting on the bed. Ethan leaned into Alan, head resting against his shoulder while Alan's arm wrapped protectively around his belly. The room was dim and warm. Alan was humming softly to the baby, lips brushing Ethan's hair. Then Ethan whispered, voice trembling. Alan. He stilled instantly. Yes. Ethan's fingers tightened around his forearm. Can I really give birth to the baby? The question wasn't about biology. It was about worth, fear, trauma. Whether he was worthy to give birth. Alan swallowed hard, voice steady despite the tears burning his eyes. Yes, he murmured, tightening his embrace. You can. You will. You're going to be a parent. You're going to hold our baby in your arms. Ethan shivered. Small and fragile, and laid his hand over Alan's. For the first time, he leaned fully into Alan's chest without tension. He fell asleep like that. But Alan didn't. He stayed awake all night, holding him carefully, one hand protectively over Ethan's stomach. As Ethan dreamed beside him, peaceful, hopeful, Alan broke down silently, tears falling into Ethan's hair. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, for all the children you lost because of me. He buried his face in Ethan's shoulder. I don't know how to face this baby after what I've done, but I'll try. I'll work hard, I'll be better, I'll give them the world. His voice cracked. I'll make sure, the two of you never cry again. Alan stayed like that until morning light crept in. A sinner holding the Omega he broke. A father praying for the child he didn't deserve. An alpha begging silently for one more chance to make things right. The last weeks of pregnancy should have been the safest and calmest part of their journey, but fate had something crueler in store. Despite the doctor's advice and the careful planning, despite the early admission and constant monitoring, everything began falling apart without warning. The Kingston hospital corridor was too bright, too cold, and each footstep of the rushing medical staff echoed like a countdown to doom. Ethan's sharp, sudden gasp tore through the silence, his hand gripping the sheets so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Alan, who had been sitting beside him reading quietly to the baby bump, froze before reality slammed into him like a blow to the chest. Blood. Too much blood. And Ethan's face, pale, drained, terrified in a way he couldn't even express aloud. His Omega sense spiked sharply with distress, filling the room with raw fear that made Alan's alpha instincts roar in panic. Doctor, please, Alan's voice cracked as he supported Ethan's trembling body, the panic building so fast he felt like the floor was falling out beneath him. He's bleeding, he's in pain, do something. The nurses stormed in, their movements quick and practiced, yet the gravity in their expressions made Alan's stomach drop. They lifted Ethan onto a stretcher as he winced, breaths short and frightened, eyes unfocused from pain. When Ethan looked at him, it wasn't numbness or distance like before. It was pure fear. His hand reached out weakly as the stretcher moved. Alan, Ethan whispered, voice trembling under the fear he had buried for years. I'm here. Alan ran alongside until the nurses blocked him. His pheromones flared uncontrollably with panic before he forced them down. Ethan, I'm right here, look at me. Please, don't be scared, I'm right here. The doors closed between them. And Alan felt like every nightmare had returned at once. When the surgical light flicked on above the door, something inside Alan collapsed. He stumbled backward, breath hitching violently. The world became unbearably loud, machines, footsteps, urgent voices, while his own thoughts went silent. He pressed his palm to the wall, lungs refusing to work. His chest tightened, vision blurring. Black dots danced at the edges as panic hit with full force. Sir, please sit. Your pulse. Don't touch me, he shouted, shoving the nurse away with shaking hands. I need to go to him, let me go inside. His voice cracked, raw and broken. Pride meant nothing. Authority meant nothing. Only Ethan mattered, the Omega bleeding behind those doors. He slid to the floor, shaking uncontrollably, hands tangled in his hair. Please don't take him. Don't take them, he sobbed, forehead pressed to his knees. I'll give anything, but not them. I can't lose them. Then. A thin newborn cry pierced the air. Alan's head snapped up. Relief surged. But died when the cry faltered. Silence. A doctor burst out carrying the baby. Respiration low, heart rate unstable, fast. Nurses rushed the newborn toward an ICU. Alan stared at the empty hallway. Not again. He slid down the wall, face drained. Please, he whispered. Not this one. Only when tears wet his shirt did he realize he was crying. Time stopped existing. Minutes became torture. Hours became punishment. He prayed to gods he didn't believe in. Promised everything he could. When the doctor finally emerged, Alan couldn't stand. Mr. Allen. Your Omega is out of danger. Air rushed back into his lungs. He covered his mouth, sobbing. He's alive. But we had to remove his reproductive organ, the doctor said gently. It was the only way to save him. Alan didn't mind. Ethan alive was all that mattered. And the baby, he whispered. Stable for now. The first week is critical. Alan collapsed fully, forehead touching the floor in gratitude and agony. He cried for a long time. Ethan's coma stretched longer than Alan could bear. He looked fragile, too pale, too thin. Machines breathed for him. Tubes sustained him. Alan never left. He cleaned Ethan's face, brushed his hair, warmed his hands. He spoke for hours about their son, how strong and beautiful he was. At night, he pressed Ethan's hand to his cheek. Come back to me, he whispered. Our son needs you. I need you. Even if I don't deserve you. He confessed everything. And cried silently beside him. 1 month later, Ethan's lashes fluttered. Ethan. Alan breathed. Ethan's eyes opened slowly, confused, searching. His voice cracked. Baby. Asked Ethan. Did I lose again? Fear filled Ethan's eyes. Alan ran, returning with their son bundled carefully. His hands trembled as he placed the baby into Ethan's arms. Our baby is here, he whispered. He's alive. He's ours. Ethan froze. His fingers trembled as they touched the little bundle. A sob tore from his chest. Then another. My baby, Ethan cried, pressing his face to the tiny head. You're here. I'm sorry. I couldn't protect. Alan fell to his knees, arms wrapping Ethan's legs as he cried openly. No, don't say sorry, he whispered. You didn't lose him. This miracle is yours. You gave him life. You fought for him. He kissed Ethan's feet like sacred ground. Then he wrapped him and child into his arms. I'll protect you forever, he vowed. Both of you. The months that followed were exhausting and tender. Ethan remained weak, recovery was slow. Nurses filled the house, but Alan did everything first. He fed the baby, changed diapers, stayed awake all night. He became the child's anchor. Ethan's only task was feeding and holding the baby when he could. Alan carried the rest without complaint. Sometimes Ethan watched Alan smile gently at their son, humming lullabies, soothing cries. Something inside Ethan softened. Alan had changed. Not for forgiveness. Not for redemption. But because he chose to be better. 3 years passed. Liam became a bright, laughing toddler who adored Alan. He ran with open arms shouting, Dada. One evening Ethan watched them from the doorway. Alan sat on the floor building blocks with Liam, laughing softly. Sunset wrapped them in gold. Watching them gave Ethan a sense of fulfillment. He stepped closer. Alan smiled warmly. That night, Alan read to Liam while Ethan rested against his chest, listening to the steady heartbeat beneath his ear. Liam fell asleep clutching Ethan's fingers. Ethan inhaled slowly. He belonged here. In this warmth. A soft kiss touched his hair. He smiled faintly before sleep claimed him. Alan held him tighter and whispered into the dark. I love you. Thank you for listening. Hope you liked the story. We will back soon with a new one, till then, bye-bye.